In the last lecture module, I suggested that Descartes outlines what we could think of as a universal epistemic context, a situation that all living creatures that traffic in information will find themselves in. They have to be able to identify sources of information, and they have to be able to determine the calibration of those sources, how reliable they are, what kinds of information, how much of that information they can get from those sources, and so on. And what we see when we start to look at the evolution of life is that life doesn't just need basic nutrients. Life isn't like, as Russell coined it, the practical person. It doesn't just need to feed itself. It needs to traffic in information. And when we look at the history of the evolution of life on this planet, going back over 1 billion years, what we discover is that life has evolved increasing irritability. Now, I don't mean irritability like old Professor Wallace yelling at kids to get off his front lawn. What I mean is sensitivity to parameters in the environment so that an organism can gather information from the distal environment and then incorporate that information into an adaptive response to the environment. And the more sophisticated, in general, an organism is at gathering information, at sharing information, at adapting to its environment or adapting its environment to itself, the more likely that organism is to survive and especially to thrive. So what we want to do now then is turn our attention to these very practical, real-world epistemic situations and see how Descartes' thinking plays out in these situations. And the first situation that we want to think about is what I call the information imperative. And the information imperative, as I want to use it in this lecture and chapter, refers to the need that living organisms have for information about their environment. And what we find is that creatures really do kind of have this imperative. And this imperative is so strong that it goes way, way down the evolutionary ladder to organisms that we don't normally think of as having anything like mentalities or trafficking in any kind of information whatsoever. So to illustrate this point, I'm going to show you 2 examples. The first example we want to look at is phototropism in plants. So the ability of plants to sense where light is coming from, then to grow in the direction of that light so that they can adapt to their environment in a way that allows them to collect more sunlight for the purposes of photosynthesis and hence to thrive or survive even in circumstances where they may not be exposed to sufficient light naturally. So the link that we have here at the bottom of this slide refers to the YouTube video that I'm going to show you right now on phototropism.
Growth in plants reflects the way in which they interact with the environment. If we place a strong light at one side of this fuchsia plant, the plant will grow towards it. This is called a phototrophic response. But what controls such a response? If the tip of the plant is protected from the light using a small cap, the plant will continue to grow upward. This suggests that there is something at the tip of the plant that controls the direction of growth. If we place this fuchsia plant on its side, it quickly recovers its orientation and grows upward. But is the plant responding to light or to gravity? These pea seeds are germinating in the dark, yet the roots are growing down and the shoots are growing up. The roots and shoots must be responding to gravity, but in different ways. The roots are said to be positively geotropic, and the shoots negatively geotropic. . It is probable that all of these growth responses are due in some part to the auxin indole acetic acid, or IAA. One theory states that a light-sensing mechanism in the tip of the fuchsia plant promotes the active transport of IAM molecules to the shaded part of the stem. This action produces cell growth and elongation in this area. The result is a curvature which orientates the plant towards the light. A gravity-sensing mechanism in the shoot tip triggers a similar migration of IAA molecules, producing growth in the stem which orientates the plant from a horizontal position back to a vertical position. The growth substance IAA also appears to have a role in maintaining apical dominance. By removing the growing tip, which controls auxin distribution and therefore apical dominance, lateral buds can grow. An important hormone in deciduous plants is abscisic acid, which controls leaf fall, thereby protecting the plant from adverse seasonal conditions.